Chosen one, do not move yet. I know your day has 1,000 demands pulling at you, but for the next few minutes, none of them are louder than what is being said here. The wealth shift you have been quietly asking the Father about for longer than you can remember is no longer in the realm of waiting. It has crossed into motion. And the reason I am speaking the way I am speaking is because most chosen ones walk straight past their breakthrough, not because it failed to arrive, but because no one ever told them what it would look like when it did. So I am going to tell you. I am going to show you the shape provision takes when it lands on a chosen life, the small recognitions you have already been having and mistaking for coincidence, and the inner shift that must happen before what is coming can actually stay. You were not pulled into this moment by accident. You were placed here. So slow your breathing, settle in, and let what comes next land on the part of you that has been waiting. Everything you need is going to be inside the next stretch of minutes, and all of it is free. But for the soul whose spirit asks for something more after this is finished, what you will need is waiting in the description and the pinned comment below. Only if you feel led. There is no pressure here. The message is the message, complete on its own. Before we go any deeper, I want you to know exactly why staying with me to the end of this conversation matters. By the time we finish, you will be able to recognize the exact shape your provision is arriving in this season, even when it does not look like what you have been picturing. You will sit with a wisdom anchor from a man who walked 13 years through obscurity before he ever stepped into a palace, and you will see why his story has been quietly being lived through yours. You will be handed a 3-question check you can run on any opportunity that lands in your life this week. You will be given permission to release the inner fear that has been silently blocking what was already on its way. And you will be sealed into the identity that lets the wealth shift actually stay once it arrives. None of these pieces work alone, they only work together. So stay. Now let me bring you into the moment you are actually standing in. Picture this for me. You are standing at a doorway. Behind you is the season just ending, the one you have lived inside of for so long it has begun to feel like permanent weather. The waiting season, the slow season, the season where you whispered prayers that did not seem to move. In front of you is a door, slightly open, not yet wide, not yet visible to anyone walking past you, but open. And the strange thing about this doorway is that you have been standing at it longer than you realize. The threshold is not in front of you. It is under your feet, right now. That is the season you are inside of, and the signs of it are already showing up in your life, even if no one has helped you connect them yet. So let me name them for you, because once you can name them, you will never be able to unsee them. The first sign is the strange return of people from your past, names you had not thought about in years. Old contacts surfacing with new context. A message arriving from someone you used to know in a week. You needed it without them knowing why. This is not random. This is not coincidence. This is the Father moving in rooms you were never told existed, lining up the conversations that carry your shift hidden inside of them. The second sign is the appearance of opportunities in unfamiliar shapes. Not the door you were waiting for. Something sideways. Something that does not match the picture in your head. Something you almost dismissed because it did not look like the version of provision you had been imagining. This is not random. This is not anxiety speaking through you. This is the shape provision actually takes when it lands on a chosen life. It rarely arrives wearing the costume you imagined for it. The third sign is a quiet internal shift. The fear about money that used to grip your chest in the morning is a little quieter than it was 3 months ago. The panic that used to hijack your decisions has loosened. You may not have more in your account, but you have more in your spirit. This is not your imagination. This is not you just getting used to the wait. This is the inner frequency adjusting to the new season before the outer circumstance catches up. The fourth sign is the closing of doors you thought you wanted open. The job that did not come through, the relationship that ended, the opportunity that fell apart at the last moment. You called it failure. It was protection. This is not delay. This is not punishment. This is the Father refusing to let you walk into a smaller version of what He is about to release. He is closing the doors. That would have cost you what is coming. The fifth sign is the quiet return of something you had accepted as lost, a creative gift waking up, a buried idea surfacing, a capacity you had stopped trusting in yourself, suddenly speaking again. This is not nostalgia. This is not random energy. This is your assignment waking up because the season finally has room for it. Hear me, chosen one. If even one of those signs has been showing up in your life recently, you are not imagining the shift. You are already inside of it. You are standing at the threshold, even if no one has confirmed it for you until right now. Let me tell you about a woman. I will not use her name. She wrote to me a while back, and what she said stayed with me. For 7 years, she had been praying for a financial breakthrough. She kept picturing it as a check arriving, a large amount appearing in her account, suddenly. That was the only shape she could see it in, and inside those 7 years, 3 things had quietly arrived to her. An old friend reconnected and offered her a side project. A skill from her 20s resurfaced, and her hands remembered it. A stranger walked into her workplace and made an offer that did not match anything she had been planning for. She almost said no to all 3. She almost let all 3 walk away, because none of them looked like a check in the account. It was only later, looking back, that she realized those 3 things were the breakthrough she had been asking for. They had arrived. She had simply been waiting for them in the wrong shape. This is what happens to chosen ones in this season. Not that the shift does not come, that it comes in shapes the mind was not trained to recognize. Now picture a dam for me, a real one, concrete, high, holding back what no one walking past it can see. For years you have only been looking at the wall. You have been judging your situation by the wall. The wall has been your evidence that nothing was moving. But behind the wall, pressure has been building, quietly, steadily, daily. The wall is not your story. The wall is just the last thing standing between you and what has been gathering on the other side. And what gathers behind a wall for years is not a stream, it is a river. Let me pause here for just a moment, because I do not want this to land as information. I want it to land as recognition. So just breathe once, slowly, here with me. Nothing to receive yet, nothing to release. Just breathe. Because what we are stepping into next is the part that explains why this season had to be this long. Why the waiting felt the way it felt. Why the Father did not answer the way you wanted Him to answer. And once you understand that, everything you have lived through in the last few years will rearrange itself in front of your eyes. So stay with me. What felt like delay was actually depth. What felt like obscurity was actually formation. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like silence was actually selection. And what felt like an unanswered prayer was actually an answer that was too large to fit inside the form you were asking it to come in. His name was Joseph. You may know his story, or you may not. He was the favored son of his father. He had dreams, real dreams, that showed him standing in a place of influence with his family bowing low before him. He was 17 years old when the picture was first given to him. He was 30 years old when it actually arrived. 13 years between the dream and the fulfillment of it. And inside those 13 years, almost everything that could go wrong did. His own brothers turned on him and sold him into slavery. He was carried into a foreign country with no language, no family, no protection. He served faithfully in the house of a powerful man, and then he was falsely accused and thrown into prison. He sat in that prison for years, forgotten, unnamed, watching dreams come true for other people, while his own seemed buried in stone. But here is what no one was telling Joseph in real time. The prison was not punishment, the prison was placement. He was being put in the exact location where he would be standing next to the one man who could mention his name to the king who would elevate him. He was not waiting in the wrong room. He was waiting in the right room before anyone, including himself, could see it. And when the moment came, When the cupbearer finally remembered him, and the call came down from the palace, Joseph was lifted from the prison floor and seated next to Pharaoh inside a single day. The same morning he woke up forgotten. By evening he was second only to the king. This is your story, chosen one. Not the costume of it, the structure of it, the years you cannot account for, the doors that closed, the prison you did not understand, the silence that did not seem to break, were not the absence of the answer. They were the shape of it. You were not being denied, you were being placed, and the only reason it took this long is because what is now arriving has weight. There is a word for this kind of weight in the original Hebrew of the scriptures. The word is yakar. It is translated into English as precious, but the truer meaning is weighty, heavy, costly, something with real substance. When the scriptures speak of the honor the Father gives to his chosen, they often use yakar, because the kind of provision that lasts is not light. It is yakar, it has weight, and weight requires a vessel that has been formed to carry it, a vessel that has been pressed, slowed, deepened, hidden, and quietly strengthened over time. You cannot pour yakar wealth into a vessel that has not been prepared for it. The vessel will crack, or it will spill, or the contents will leave as quickly as they came. So the Father, in his mercy, did not give you yakar provision before you could carry it. He waited until the formation matched the inheritance. And that is why this season took as long as it did. Now come back to the dam for one more moment, because something has just changed in the picture. The reason the pressure has been building so long is not because the Father has been holding back. It is because what is behind the wall is not a stream, it is a river. A stream needs a small opening. A river needs a wall to break, and the wall does not break by your striving. The wall breaks when the river behind it is so full that no wall can hold it any longer. That is the season you are in right now. The pressure is not your enemy. The pressure is the evidence that what is gathering is large. And I hear the Father saying something to you in this moment, very quietly, as a witness over all of it. I did not bring you this far to leave you here. The delay was not denial. It was design. I could end this message right here, and you would already have enough to walk differently this week. But there is one more thing I have to mention before we go further, because it is the piece that connects to what is coming next. Joseph could not have carried palace-level provision with prison-level frequency. Something inside of him had to recalibrate before the elevation could land and stay. The brain state he carried in the prison had to shift before he could lead a nation through a famine. And that is not just an ancient story. That is real neuroscience. There is a tool I will come back to in more depth a little later in this conversation. It is called the Genius Song. It was created by a neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake after 34 years of research into the brain frequencies that govern recognition, intuition, and what the scientific literature calls flow state. It is a short digital audio you listen to with headphones, and its purpose is to reactivate a frequency in the brain called gamma, the frequency the Father placed inside every chosen carrier so they could recognize provision when it arrives in unfamiliar shapes. We will go deeper into how that works in a few minutes. For now, if your spirit is already telling you to know more, the link is in the description and the pinned comment below, only if you feel led. There is no pressure. Just leave it for later and stay with me. Because what is coming in the next part of this conversation is the part the Father wanted you to have the most. The wealth shift will arrive. That part is already in motion, but there is something you can do, or fail to do, that decides whether it actually stays in your life, or whether it slips through your hands the way it has for so many others before you. That is what we open next. So, take one slow breath, and meet me back here. Welcome back, chosen one. Thank you for staying. I know it would have been easier to drift away and let the day pull you somewhere lighter, but you stayed. That matters more than you realize. So, let me pick up where we left off. We talked about the doorway you are standing at. We named the 5 signs already showing up. We sat with Joseph for 13 years until the prison opened. We held the word yakar in our hands. We watched the dam, and we understood that the pressure is not your enemy, but the evidence of something large gathering on the other side. And I left you with one question hanging in the air. What decides whether the wealth shift actually stays once it arrives? That is what I want to answer for you now. Hear me carefully. When the Father releases provision over a chosen life, it almost never arrives in just one form. So the first thing I need you to understand is the shape of what is coming, because if you do not know the shape, you will let it walk past you. Provision arrives as a person, someone introduced into your life with a purpose you cannot yet see. Provision arrives as a project, an invitation to do something small that turns out to be the doorway to something larger. Provision arrives as a recovery, a health, a peace, a clarity returning to you that quietly removes the obstacle that was costing you money in ways you never connected. Provision arrives as a redirection, a no that protects you from a yes that would have cost you the inheritance. Provision arrives as a return, something you thought was lost, coming back to you in a different shape with new value attached to it. 5 shapes. That is what to watch for. Not one shape, 5. Now I want to give you something practical you can use this week. A simple check you can run on any opportunity, any person, any invitation that lands in your life over the next 7 days. I call it the 3-question recognition check, and the questions are these. The first question: did this arrive in a season I had quietly given up asking for? Because the Father has a pattern of answering prayers after the ear has stopped straining to hear. If something has shown up in a category you had already released, that is one yes. The second question: does this require me to become slightly larger than I was? Not impossibly large. Slightly. A version of me that takes one step beyond the version that has been hiding. Yakar provision always asks for a slightly larger vessel. If the thing in front of you requires that of you, that is the second yes. The third question: did I almost dismiss it the first time? Because the costume rarely matches the imagination. If your first instinct was to wave it off, and something quiet inside of you made you look again, that is the third yes. If 2 of those 3 are a yes, you are likely standing in front of one of the shapes of your shift. I cannot tell you with certainty. I am not the one writing your story. But the pattern is the pattern, and it has held for a long time across many lives. So write those 3 questions down somewhere this week, or just remember them, because the shift is happening, and you do not want to dismiss what has been chosen for you. One more thing before we go further. Your shape of provision may not match the person next to you. Your neighbor may receive in a different form. Your sibling, your friend. The comparison is the thief here. Comparison kills recognition. So, when what is coming to you arrives, do not look at it through the lens of what came to someone else. Look at it through the lens of what your spirit recognizes. Now hear me. Before I can show you the inner shift that decides whether what is coming actually stays, because I will show you, there is something I have to say first that almost no one in this space ever says out loud. And once you hear it, you are going to understand why provision sometimes arrives in a life and then leaves before it can be received. Stay with me. Let me ground us for a moment, because I do not want any of this to feel like a wave you are getting carried by. I want you to know clearly what you have actually been given so far, in plain language, so you can walk out of this conversation and use it. Here is the why. Wealth shifts are not received by mindset alone. They are received by an inner state that is calibrated enough to recognize provision when it arrives in unfamiliar shapes. Without the recognition, the provision keeps walking past you. Here is the what. You have learned 5 signs of the season you are already inside of. You have a wisdom anchor in the story of Joseph, who waited 13 years not because the answer was missing, but because the formation had to match the inheritance. You have a word, yakar, that explains why what is coming has weight, and why a weighty inheritance requires a prepared vessel. You have a 5-shape map of how provision actually lands, and a 3-question check you can use this week on anything that shows up. And here is the who. You are not a person hoping a check arrives. You are a chosen carrier, formed quietly over a long season, whose inner frequency has been preparing to recognize what most will walk straight past. That is the person sitting here right now. That is who is receiving this. Hold that for a second. Because the inner state matters. The recognition only works when the frequency is alive. So before we go to the inner shift, there is one piece of this you need to understand. It is the tool that turns recognition into reception. Before I name the tool, I need you to remember something about yourself. You were not made ordinary. The reason you have always felt different is not because something is wrong with you. It is because something in you was built to operate at a frequency that the modern world has been quietly suppressing since you were a small child. That frequency has a name. It is called gamma. It is the brain state where intuition speaks clearly, where ideas arrive fully formed, where the right person walks through the door at the right minute. It was placed inside of you as a gift. And it is the exact frequency that lets a chosen carrier recognize provision when it arrives in shapes the mind was not trained to see. Remember what we said about Joseph. He could not carry palace-level provision with prison-level frequency. Something had to shift inside of him before the elevation could land. That same shift is what is being asked of you now. The wealth shift is already in motion. The question is whether the frequency inside of you is alive enough to receive it. This is where the science comes in. Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years mapping the brain frequencies that govern recognition, intuition, and what researchers call flow state. His work has been studied at MIT, at Princeton, and at several other leading research universities. What he and his colleagues found is something they called the decline effect. From around the age of 7, the world begins to suppress gamma. The schools train it out of you. The hours of distraction suppress it. The constant noise of the survival mind dulls it. By the time you are an adult, the frequency that was given to you as a birthright is barely audible inside of you. That is why so many prayers feel like they hit a brass ceiling. That is why opportunities walk past unrecognized. The signal is not gone. It is just sleeping. I want to share something with you. A woman I will simply call by an initial, M, reached out months after she had begun using the tool I am about to name. What she said was not what I expected. She did not lead with money. She said that the first thing she noticed was that she started recognizing things she had been missing. A conversation with a coworker that turned into a contract. A friend's offhand mention that turned into a partnership. 3 months later, the financial shift had quietly arrived, but she had needed the recognition first. I know what some of you are thinking. You have tried things before. Programs, courses, meditations, methods, and you are tired of the promises. I hear you. So let me say it simply. This is not a method you have to learn. It is a short digital audio. You listen with headphones. You close your eyes. 7 minutes. There is no homework. There is no doctrine. There is also a full refund guarantee. No questions asked. Because the Father covers the cost of your investigation too. It is called The Genius Song. It is a 7-minute digital audio file. You receive it instantly by email. No shipping. You listen to it daily with headphones for a few minutes, and that is the entire practice. The original price for this tool is $49. For chosen ones receiving this message, the price has been brought down to $39, and this price is not available on Amazon or anywhere else. Alongside it, you will receive 4 bonus tools, free, with a combined value of $80. The first is called Genius Child, a 6-minute audio calibrated for the young people in your life, valued at $19. The second is the original book that inspired The Secret, which is about real financial principles, valued at $20. The third is a 22-minute guided visualization across 4 life areas: finances, love, health, and joy, valued at $29. The fourth is a simple infographic of the 5 daily habits that keep gamma activated after reactivation, valued at $12. So, the total assembled value is $129, and the price for you today is $39. To this day, more than 18,366 souls have walked this path with the tool, and under 4% have asked for a refund, which means more than 96% kept walking with it long after the guarantee window had closed. Hear me on this. There is no manufactured urgency here. The shift is happening in your life whether you have the tool or not. What the tool does is make the recognition easier. It quiets the noise. It retunes the frequency. It lets you hear what your spirit was already trying to tell you about the opportunities walking past. That is all it does. But that is the difference between provision arriving and provision being received. Before you go searching for this anywhere else, I need you to protect yourself. The only authentic version of the Genius song comes through the link in the description and the pinned comment of this message, which leads to chosenecho.com. There are knockoff versions floating around in other places, and what is in them is not the same audio. The frequencies are tampered. They may carry the wrong calibration entirely. Your alignment is too valuable to risk for a few saved dollars. So, only use the link below. And here is the soft word. If the Genius song resonates with what your spirit has been quietly asking for, the link is in the description and the pinned comment. Investigate only if you feel led. There is no pressure here. Provision arrives either way. This just helps you receive it. Now, with that in your awareness, let me bring you back to the part of this conversation that matters most for the days ahead. Because here is the truth that almost nobody is naming. The reason provision sometimes arrives in a chosen life and then slips away is not because the Father took it back. It is because something inside the carrier was not ready to be seen carrying it. There is a fear that lives in chosen ones that is not the fear of failure. It is the fear of success, the fear of being visible, the fear of becoming someone your old life can no longer recognize. The fear that, if you receive too much, you will betray the people who could not. The fear that if you step into the larger version of yourself, you will lose the connections that were built around the smaller version. This fear has a quiet shape, and it lives just underneath the surface of the moment when breakthrough actually arrives. So when provision shows up, the body tenses, the mind makes excuses, the chosen carrier finds reasons to push the opportunity away, to dismiss the conversation, to not return the call, to not say yes. And the provision walks past one more time, looking for a vessel willing to be seen carrying it. I do not say this to shame you. I say this to free you. Because this fear is not your character. It is the residue of being formed in environments where smallness kept you safe. It was a protection at one stage of your life. It is no longer your assignment in this one. So let me give you the words that release it. And just let these land inside of you as they pass through. You are allowed to grow past what shaped you. You are allowed to out-earn your family. You are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to keep what arrives. You are allowed to stop apologizing for being chosen. Breathe. Let those settle. And as you breathe, release the agreement that smallness kept you safe. It served a younger version of you. It does not serve the version walking through this doorway. Let it go. By the way, if you want to keep walking with me through more of this kind of work as the season unfolds, the subscribe bell is the way I find you again. That is the only place I would mention it. Now back to what matters. And now hear who you actually are walking through this threshold. You are the heir, not a beggar at the gate hoping for crumbs. An heir at the threshold, claiming what has had your name on it from the beginning. The provision is not luck, it is inheritance. And inheritance is received with open hands, not earned with anxious ones. You are the cycle breaker, You are the one in your bloodline who refuses to inherit lack as theology. The story of scarcity ends with you. The agreements your parents made with smallness, you are unmaking. The way you walk through this doorway makes the door wider for the ones still standing where you used to stand. You are the provider. What you receive is not just for you. It is for the people who will receive through you. The Father trusts the carriers he trusts, because what is given to them does not stop with them. It flows. It multiplies. It reaches names you will not meet until later. That is the assignment. You are the pioneer. You are the first one in your line to walk through this particular door. There is no map handed down. There is no template you are following. You are making the path for the ones coming behind you, and the way you walk through this season is the inheritance you leave them. Now I want you to close the eyes of your spirit for one moment. Even if your physical eyes are open, this is an inner action. See yourself standing at the doorway again. Behind you, the long waiting season. In front of you, the door slightly open. Take one breath, and in your imagination, step. Just step. Notice what you carry with you across the threshold. Notice what stays behind on the other side. Whatever does not belong in the season you are walking into, let it stay where it is. You are stepping forward now, and the door is widening as you walk through. Stay here with me, chosen one. We are coming to the closing. Before anything else, I want to thank you for staying, for listening, with the part of you that has been quietly waiting. The hour you have given to this message is not small. The Father saw you give it, and what we have walked through together has been built carefully, on purpose, for the season you are inside of. So receive that. Now release. Whatever attached itself to your finances over these long years that was not assigned to you, let it leave you now. The timing, anxiety, the comparison, the agreement with smallness, the fear of being seen, the shame of not being further along, the grief of unanswered prayers. Let it leave the room where your spirit lives. You do not have to carry it across the threshold. Leave it on the other side of the door. And I hear the Father speaking over you now, very clearly, in this moment. I see you at this threshold. I have been waiting longer than you have. Step. Over your finances, I declare clarity. Over your timing, I declare alignment. Over your identity, I declare anchored. Over your provision, I declare it arrives in shapes you will not miss. Over your fear of being seen, I declare it has lost the right to gatekeep your inheritance. Over your hands, I declare them open to receive without striving. Over your name, I declare it spoken in rooms you have not yet walked into. Over your bloodline, I declare the cycle broken at your generation. You are commissioned. You are anointed. You are sent. It is established. It is sealed. It is becoming. Walk forward, chosen one. The doorway is open. If this message reached the part of you that has been quietly waiting, type the word Amen in the comments below to seal what you received today. And if you walked through the doorway with me, type the word chosen so I know who stepped across. If this conversation touched something real in your spirit, the small heart on your screen is the agreement that confirms it. A simple act of yes. And if there is one person in your life who has been silent about their finances for too long, who covers it with smiles and changes the subject when someone asks how things are going, who has been waiting for their shift in the wrong shape, send this message to them quietly. They may need permission to recognize what has already started for them too. I will see you in the next conversation. Walk forward.